Okay, really great. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the personal breakthrough for me was that literally the mind is separate from the brain. And once I understood that, it was like, oh my goodness. Now I can access, right? What I call the third heaven, the mind, all of those things. I can access that and I can use that to change the physiology of my body. I can literally use that mind and train my mind and new neural pathways and all those things that can actually transform the brain, and the brain's going to tell the body what to do, and then the body will manifest my thoughts. So that just started me on a whole journey of, neuroscience and, Dr. Bruce Lipton and all of this stuff. Everything just kind of overlapped, and now I'm just all fired up and ready to go and ready to co-create and collaborate with people like you all. So Tom, thank you so much for the invite here today.
You are fired up. And where on the planet are you?
I am in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, beautiful. No wonder you're fired up. Yeah. That's a hard place to leave.
Oh,
Um, so what a fitting um, feeling for the conversation that's going to emerge here. And I love the idea of the third heaven. I'm going to put myself back on gallery view. Part of what we're doing here this week has been such a beautiful illustration of how humanity thrives as organism, how we thrive in sacred connection.
Shall I introduce you before you go on? Because I know there are a lot of people who don't know you.
Yeah, how'd that happen, by the way? How are there still people who don't know us?
You haven't reached wide enough. That's how. Well, everyone.
Well, I'll say that by saying that one of my favorite things that came from the previous session, Trista, I believe she said something like our inability to see themselves as God, as she was describing people's discomfort and pathology, right? And she was talking about young people, but the inability to see themselves as God. So the invitation today is that everybody understand that most of the world knows who you are and just hasn't met you yet. Yeah.
And with that, I'll just talk about Tom by saying that he has been in gut-brain health. He is a regenerative neurologist and functional medicine doctor, but he's also one of the most caring people on the planet. And he believes in being in communication with people. The healer is...
Sorry about that. Other people believe in being in communication too.
With you see. And the healer is part of the healing, but the person coming for healing is the healer too. And that's one of the most empowering things that I think Tom really brings to the table. So with that, I'll let him continue the conversation, because it's sacred food as leadership, and it's such an important part.
Yeah, thank you so much. Since Robert mentioned the third heaven, which I'd like to know more about, the phrase optimizing the mansion came to me this morning. As I was contemplating the agenda, and really we've been contemplating this agenda for a couple of months, and one of the beautiful breakthroughs that I welcome everybody to have today, since we were talking in the earlier session about being a responsible adult, and how do we rid ourselves of being a responsible adult, get back to the place where, oh, I get to have the childlike, I get to be the child who knows the feelings of abundance. There's not a question in my, we don't even have the mechanics to ask and wonder, will we get the glass of milk? We will get the glass of milk, and we will get the hug from mama. And right, there's not even a question of, is that coming? So we're going to shed the constructs of being a responsible adult today and get back to a place of living in physiologic abundance. And I get to let go of what I thought I was going to talk about, which is when I talk about sacred food, I'm talking about know your farmers, know your animals, know the place your food came from. Did it live a happy life? That's all I'll say about that for now. We can talk about the biochemistry and the macronutrients and the supplements, et cetera, if anybody really wants to. But I have a feeling we're not going to go down that road today. And knowing where the food came from allows the full sacred nourishment that we've been creating here all week, which is living in that abundance state, which says, wow, that cat's got something to teach me. Didn't expect it. It looks like an unexpected visitor. I wonder what she wants, he wants, right? And in that momentary state of inquiry, and the momentary state of inquiry actually comes from a place of safety, which comes from a place of physiologic competence and metabolic flexibility, because where gut is healthy, metabolic flexibility is there. Glial flexibility is there. Glia are the support cells in the central nervous system, the family of different kinds, oligodendrocytes, astrocytes, etc. Much the way we're creating conscious communities here around the world who can speak to each other, where the conscious communities of our cellular, quote, organs can speak to each other, then we've got a healthy corpus. And so we're creating conscious human beings who can step into their own personal sovereignty and live in the question mark of, wow, what's that cat about? Right? And everybody, I think, can presence something in their life this morning that was an intrusion. So think of something that was an intrusion, an unexpected, a glitch, right? A glitch in the matrix. And what would it have been like to live with a different kind of serenity when that glitch showed up? Everybody got one? So I'll show you what I thought I was going to talk about today. And here's Dr. Leaf's website, by the way, that Robert was talking about. And I will explore this week. How to help your child clean up the mental mess. This is appropriate, right? How do we help me and the child? How do I help me, the adult, say goodbye? How do I let the emergent phenomena of my inner child, my third heaven, emerge, right? And how do I let the wisdom of that new child, that unexpected blessing, how do I let that literally inform my next reality? So we'll come back to that. So where's our Trello board? Here's what we thought we were going to talk about. We're being asked to newly regenerate. How do we create a mind-body politic that is metabolically flexible enough to feed soul and body politic? Healthy, thriving people navigate their habits, eating, moving, emotionally interacting, sleeping, bathing, recreating, in search of workable sweet spots of life, the places of personal peace where we are naturally and easily willing to welcome the next better version of ourselves, of us. Okay, so I get to break free. See, I've said that so many times over the past decade, the next better version of ourselves, still footed in the individual. Yeah, self, still footed in the individual. This is the breakthrough, the next better version of us and what we've created here. Did I stop sharing screen? Yeah. Are we here?
We're
Next better us. And we're a different collective than we were 10 minutes ago. Right? Thank you all for bringing yourselves here. And that's the emergent phenomena. We were just creating the idea of the golden goose and the magic, the metaphysic of the process of creation being the call it the personal, call it the spiritual basking in the golden goose nest without the egg. And of course, we're all still ego attached to the egg, but it ain't about the thing that's being produced, right? In the world of regenerative nutrition science and metabolic flexibility, we're looking to tweak the cells such that cytokine, intercellular communication and cytokine freedom and balance and the bigger picture in the world of our World Unity Week conversation, the bigger picture is each of us as a cell in this organism called Mama Gaia can be that same thing, and we're willing to give up the membrane of who we are, right? We're willing to that membrane is the communication mechanism. Cell's got a thing around it. Do I have a picture of that? I think I presenced a picture just to have it, just in case. And I don't want to dive very deeply into the nuts and bolts of this thing, unless folks have specific questions at the end, and I'll definitely leave time for that. But all the little stuff in the membrane is the way that the cell knows how to receive from another cell, and it knows and how it's going to generate for another cell. And it's a certain intention. It's based on it's based on ego structure, much the way we're based on ego structure. And to the extent that we can lobotomize ourselves and our adult to step into the child version, the novel child of the third heaven, that's the optimizing the mansion, right? Then we can optimize the mansion just because this thing can turn over. By the way, Robert, you mentioned Lipton. I was lucky enough to have Bruce Lipton as my cell biology professor in med school. And I had no idea that I had gotten the golden egg at the time, but he used to call it the membrane, MEM-BRAIN. And he was a trip, and he would personify the cellular structures. And so I learned how to do that from him, which was quite a gift. So to the extent that we are an us, then we have a chance of doing this. Does anybody have anything going on in their life that they'd like to not be happening? And when we hear the word addiction, we think substance. It doesn't have to be a substance. It could be. But we're all addicted to our patterns, our habits. We wake up and we pretty much take stock of what happened yesterday and what's about to happen today. It's a hard way to live. And it's a non-evolutionary way to live. And the irony is that we'll always live in that paradox. Here we are stuck in a non-spiritual thing. We're spiritual creatures living a physical life. And in the grand metaphysic of things, we will not until the point of transition, with any kind of momentum, ever hold on to the idea that we are the spiritual. We can glimpse it in meditation, and we can glimpse it in conversation. And we can glimpse it in this, right? The sacred be with. I was part of a growth and development group years back went through their courses and actually coached their programs for a little while. And in one of their courses, they had what they called the be with. And it was they paired you off and you stood there and you looked at each other and you looked at. Not many of us are skilled at being looked at for real, right? And if we were, the addiction would disappear, because it's really hard to be eye to eye with somebody for any length of time and remember with any kind of gravity what you cared about that morning, right? So the addiction comes off the plate. So present's something that you want to let go of this month. Might be substance, it might be a medication, it might be a habit, it might be a person, it might be a thought, it might be an inner dialogue, etc. I would suggest that all of that is attack, right? All of every, and not to put a negative connotation on the word attack. In the world of confronting, that's the opposite of be with. In the world of confronting life, I take on such and such. I say X, produce X. That's the adult version, right? The kid version, who knows he's going to get a hug and he knows he's going to get a glass of milk. The kid version is say X, but realistically not even know that there's an X to say. Ecstasy, right? No X to say equals ecstasy. How about that? And the kid gets to live, right, in the future. Where we can't do that, where we are in confrontation, this is immune attack. And in a competent body, a lot of what I talk about is putting together our immune survey such that where the unexpected black cat appears and the novel virus appears, and et cetera, the novel antigen appears, where there's a competence there, really living in a state of abundance, metabolic abundance and emotional, physical, spiritual abundance. All of them are the same. That's the immune shrug. That's the, I get to go on my way and be the kid and play in the playground, right? So I'll just say, for those who haven't heard this before, folks on the recording maybe, as an autoimmune specialist, and I work a lot with cancer, since I learned how to talk this way, because immune survey is similar to our oncogenic survey. So the beginnings of a tumor, similarly, are a body tolerating a change that's footed in scarcity, metabolic scarcity, not footed in metabolic abundance. So autoimmunity is our separation, the fragmentation of our body from that place of abundance. When our microbiome is intact, we're in the place of abundance. Where I hope I said that correctly, where our microbiome is intact, not attacked, where there's integrity to the family, and microbiome is the thousands, tens of thousands of species of bacteria and virus and parasite and other microorganisms, fungi, etc., and probably life forms that we haven't yet identified. The family of those creatures, those life forms, are those beings that come along with food, that come along with interacting with the planet, come along with breathing. We've got a microbiome of our respiratory tree. The microbiome at the lip interface that's covering my teeth is different from the microbiome that's just several inches back at the beginning of my throat, and so on. And the ecosystem conditions of the life form determine what life thrives there. And so when we're interfacing properly with our ecosystems and not interrupting it with pharmaceuticals or anti-inflammatories or poisons or plastics or things that are not life, if we're not interrupting it with things that are not life, and fake foods go in that category, then those proper communities can form, right? Those proper communities forming equal immune competence. And just like a proper community of healthy, thriving human beings forms a competence and a sacred Congress, if you will, right? What a United Nations maybe would supposed to be. We don't have that. We have self-interest, and we have foot stomping, and we have a lot of everything we've been exploring here this week is about how we have tolerated over the generations, over the centuries. We've tolerated a progressive stepping into fragmenting ourselves and having that be what we call, what passes for adult behavior, right? It's adult behavior to know what religion I am and to stomp my foot and say other religions are bad. It's adult behavior to talk about my national sovereignty and my citizenship and talk about how good my country is, right? It's my adult responsibility to say yes to the leaders of my country. And we've tolerated that. And so we've tolerated the fragmentation. We've tolerated the dissolution of this sacred Congress, which really is an international. That's one thing that's coming so clear for me this week. And so many beautiful ways of people presenting their surrender of their personal version of foot stomping. Yeah. So back at the tissue level, that's the beginning of multiple sclerosis. It's the beginning of Crohn's disease, the beginning of Hashimoto's, et cetera, and it comes from what's called a dysbiosis, a destruction, could be subtle or severe, of that microbiome. So you take down the diversity of the species of life in this thing that looks like a human being, then all of a sudden you've taken down the capacity to navigate. So the first order of business is to look around at the petri dish, look at our ecosystem, right? Look at our homes. What kind of frequencies do we live in? I'll just say as an aside, if people haven't heard me say this, and it's a huge piece of my life the past few years. COVID rolled out in Wuhan in the summer of 19. I'm sorry, 5G rolled out in Wuhan in the summer of 19. Quote, COVID showed up a few months later, and the mapping of 5G rollout, you can juxtapose the maps of 5G on the globe and the maps of supposed high incidence rates of, quote, COVID, and they're the same. So it's a big piece of this is dissecting the frequencies of life for me in the past few years. And as we're stepping into a place of clarity, I think we're gonna start to see it's not just the radio frequencies that roll out. And this has happened over the generations. There were waves of disease when radio rolled out. There were waves of new disease when TV rolled out. There were waves, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a fascinating inquiry. And it's a great wake-up call for us to say, well, so what's the frequency of this coffee? What's the frequency of the beans that went into this? Right? And what's the frequency of the Keurig machine that made what we thought was coffee? Maybe this isn't the coffee that my ancestors were drinking. Yeah. So we get to open our eyes a little bit. And then once we start looking at the frequencies that we live in, where do we want better food, right? Then the sacred interbeing is possible. Sacred interbeing with our foods, origins. And I capitalized finalities because much the way we become an adult and I present myself to the world and off I go. I've completed, right? No, we better be children and the next better version of us. If you're not different this time next year, you're probably not up to something, right? And and it doesn't have to be better, or it doesn't have to be better. It could be better, worse, but we're certainly not going to be the same. So we get to also disrupt this idea of finality and completion and the thing that we've presented, because the food stuff itself that comes looks like an orange. It looks like the tree was finished with it, and it looks like it's something to consume in the way that we're used to consuming it. But just like we have a transformation, and once I get rid of the paradox of this physical body living on Mama Earth, I get to be my spiritual reality. What if the orange has a similar fate, right? What if the orange isn't finished when it falls off the tree? It's only beginning, right? And it's lucky enough to be eaten by a guy who understands what that orange might bring, and laughs at his own understanding, right? Because we could break down the biochemistry of it, the macronutrients. But it's bringing the frequency and the vibration. So that's right relation with our food. And it's not just the things we chew and swallow. It's the right relation. It's right relation with this food right here. This food right here. Robert, Hasina, Sherry, Jay, Shamima, Sandra, Nicole, Becky, Rashida, and iPhone. iPhone, you might want to rename yourself or show yourself. Feel free to everybody turn on your cameras. So realistically, we're not present to this very often either. So we don't really walk through our days as we're acting as adults. We don't really walk through our days being longing to be drawn into that big story, that big next, what Robert called the third heaven, right? Optimizing the mansion. So optimizing the mansion's got, I think what came here this morning to me was, as I was blowing this agenda out of the water and saying that's not the way it's going to go, choosing participation. Yesterday's theme was cooperation. Today's theme is abundance. As we move through what feels like a lifetime, really, of redefinition this week. Such a beautiful redefinition and opportunity. And then we get to choose the reveling, right? Then we get to choose, and we're co-evolving. That's the emergence phenomena, and that's the longing. And there's not going to be anything out there, just like the golden egg is not coming. It's the goose that lays the golden egg. And if we can presence ourselves to the holistic of the goose, which is the transformation vehicle itself, then we can realize, oh, we're all in the same boat and we're all going to the same place. And then I get to take responsibility for you, because that be with, in the world of be with, I better be with the orange, better be able to be with the orange. And I better be able to be with a stranger, my neighbor. And I better be able to be with the one in the mirror, right? And I better take responsibility to the extent that I live in abundance, which is our theme. To the extent that I live in abundance, I have the opportunity to contribute. And that's what began in the previous session. That's what began this whole idea of the golden goose, was the idea of contribute transforms from here to there. I give to. The idea of contribution is a be with exercise. It's a mutualistic, it's a sacred interface exercise. And the contribution, much the way the orange knows how to meet me, with translators, with the microbiome, with the bacteria in my gut, right? With many cells, and then it knows how to meet me. The idea of contribution transforms, not from me to, and I'm not tithing. I'm actually being with, and I win when I pay it forward. I think I'll pause and see if anybody has any thoughts, questions, tweaks, et cetera, et cetera. But this, if I start talking about this, I'll talk for a long time. But just so you know, part of, I'll share with everybody a little bit of my walk. So as an undergrad at the University of Virginia, I was very interested in neural mechanisms. And it was back during the days where they were just coming out with the first SSRIs. They were coming out with the first antidepressants. And the idea was intriguing to me that you could put a chemical in the body, that there were chemicals you could put in the body that did something to the brain. That shouldn't have been such an enlightenment since I grew up in a medical family. But for some reason it hit me that, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to be able to change people's brains. And so I studied as a psych major and a psych and biology double. I thought I was going into my career as a psychologist. And I got lost in neurology. I got lost in other things, and that's a longer story, but putting the gut together actually puts the brain together. So all of our catecholamines, which are the neurotransmitters in the brain, our dopamine, our serotonin, are optimized by themselves when the right playground of the gut is put together, right? Much like the emergent wisdom phenomenon here that we've experienced this week so beautifully. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, feedback? One of the gentlemen I interviewed yesterday, if anybody has the opportunity to see Dr. Herman Edling's session from yesterday, we interviewed him, and he said he welcomed disagreement. I forget how he said it, but he welcomed disagreement or challenge. And so this will emerge. That, you know, the whole idea here is that whatever we all take away from this is very different from what we expected. I hope I've already met that standard at least. I hope this is very different for you. Yeah, Robert, go ahead.
You were talking about the orange, you know, and if it was ready, if it was final. It reminded me of again, something else that I've looked into as far as foods go, and the fact that fruits can be like terrible for us and lead to obesity and everything else, because we used to be able to just eat fruit when it was fresh, ripe, locally. But now with this globalization stuff, that orange may be not ripe when it's picked. So the tree wasn't finished with it. And now we artificially ripen it and we eat it. And we're not getting the same ripe fruit that it was designed for in us. So it causes some problems in our body. So with your wealth of knowledge, I want to know what you think about that whole thing, because I'm not as deep as you for sure. I mean, I'm fascinated by what you're sharing here. So this is really cool. But what do you think about that whole thought process?
Yeah, well, that's really well said. And it's true. A lot of the life form isn't reaching us as life form anymore. We got shanghaied into dissecting the macronutrients. Again, it was very interesting scientifically and biochemically once we realized. And so, tell you what, I'll give you a 2-minute version of the way I would have answered this question 5 years ago, right? 5 years ago, I would have said a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, a wide variety of natural foods, as clean as possible, as happy as they could be, confer the growth matrix for the other life forms, for the microbiome. So prebiotic fiber comes from eating many different kinds of foods, right? We're very far away from our hunter-gatherer body that knew how to eat real, eat local. and be grateful, right? Because when you found something, you put a certain energy into it too. So the wide variety of foods offers a wide variety of prebiotic fibers. Is it wrong to take prebiotic? No. Is it wrong to take prebiotic powders? No. Unfortunately, it's probably mandatory these days. Then the right bacteria can grow, and the right bacteria put the body in a place where we are ketogenic. We are functionally ketogenic. That just means using fat as a fuel source. A lot of folks have stolen the word ketogenic and turned it into something. But if the body's needing sugar and using sugar as a fuel source, that's the beginning of most metabolic syndromes. Everything that's on the diabetes spectrum and heart disease and cardiovascular and the whole thing begins with that. So when you put the body in ketogenesis, then you're liberating fat. You're using fat as a fuel source, not just to carry out the functions of the body, but also to repair each and every one of those 500 billion cells. We make 300 to 500 million cells per day. Billion. And that means we also lose 500 billion cells per day. A healthy body does. Unhealthy body doesn't do that. And that's good hormone balance. So that creates those cell membranes that I showed you, which is a nice playground for the cell to actually interact with its environment. And where it's got a healthy membrane that can replace its lipids, that's a bilipid layer that makes that membrane, by the way. So a wide variety of fats allows the cell to create that phospholipid matrix and the bilipid layer, which is the permissive sacred congress, and lets the cell define itself based on where it is, what it's interacting with, the messages it's receiving, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the way I would have answered it 2 years ago. Maybe not with the last part. As much as it's important to eat a wide variety of foods, it's important to eat a wide variety of anatomies of the food. So we want root foods, we want stems, we want leaves. And as you pointed out, the age of the fruit, it's also important to eat a variety of ages. So there's nothing wrong with an orange coming off the tree early, but it's that counts as a very different foodstuff than the orange that's been off the tree for a day or two, that came from the ground, and it comes along with a different microbiome and a different wisdom and a different aching, if you will. If I could really extend that metaphor, what if there's a spiritual aching, a metaphysical aching of the orange for, oh, wow, I really wish the cow would come along and consume me. I really need to be in the cud today. Yeah. And so sacred foods come along with sacred intentions. But you're right on. When we sterilize them and we put pesticides and we stop the growth and we stop the reality, that's a rigor mortis for any life form. Yeah. And so we get in the way of the natural consumer producer contribution cycle of any life form. And we do that with antibiotics because we take away their microbiome, and we do it with glyphosate and other pesticides, all in the name of production. Yeah. Good answer. Okay. Thank you for the question. And thank you for tolerating my rambling. Anything else? Anybody's got? Sandra, I see you put emotional eating in the chat earlier. Would you like to say anything about that? You're muted. Sandra, you're muted.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm asking you to unmute and
So I.
Oh, wait.
Down at the lower left if you can see in your screen down at the lower left, there's a little microphone.
I did that
There you
several
go.
times.
There you
Okay, well, yes. Well, hi, everybody. So, yeah, emotional eating is reoccurring in my life again, which I'd let it go for quite some time. So, yeah, you said I'm letting it go again, being a responsible adult, going at least if I'm emotionally eating, at least it's going to be popcorn that doesn't have GMO in it and stuff like that. So, you know, not Reese's Pieces and Kit Kats, though that's what I'd rather be emotionally eating. But I'm not doing that, okay? I'm being a responsible adult. Sometimes I don't want to be, though. So,
Yeah, well, congratulations on making the cognitive shift.
yes,
It's hard when we have to force ourselves, right?
Yes,
And
being aware makes the difference, you know? And there's a lot of emotional turmoil in my life, and I just know that that's what I go to. So if I don't have it around, then I won't eat it. So that's what I do. Don't have it around, you know?
Well, and it's an interesting transformation when you get to a place where you actually can look at it and say, oh no, not for me, not today. And it's not out of a cognitive forcing, right? When you get to a place, much the way I described the immune shrug earlier, and you get to a place where you understand what's real and what's not real, just at the tiniest little first glimpse of what's real out there. It's true for the information that we hear. It's true for what we see, what we breathe, and certainly what we eat. And we've all been terrorized into compliance. Yeah,
Yes.
and I don't think it's too strong a way to say it. We've been terrorized into compliance and silence.
Turn on the news, you're terrorized.
Well,
You know?
and there's a fragmentation that goes along with that, and much the way that we're looking at the pathologies that come along with isolation, we're looking at the pathologies that come along with having been separated from nature. Eating food that actually comes from a place that you know and like, and a place that actually comes within the right frequencies, rather than a sterile field that's been antibiotic and genetically modified. Real food is the thing that, I can't stop. I don't know where Stacy is or where she's walking, but that looks good to me, right? I want to be out there in that. That's the sacred food. And then all of a sudden I can't tell you the time I've stopped actively hating because I started to realize how much of a resentment I had against the golden arches. And I was one of them. I was there too. I know what you're going through. It's been a lot of years since I cared to put that in me these days. And it doesn't mean I don't, I had to have some boardwalk fries in Florida last month, and every once in a while, but saying a prayer and knowing that, wow, this is going to feed me today, that's a big deal. But you do get to a place once you've taken the hard steps of I have to say no, then it becomes very interestingly simple. This might be a good time. Actually, was in this agenda. It was for the purposes of building to these 12 steps, and I'm rewriting the 12 steps for the 12 steps of food recovery. And this is not Overeaters Anonymous, by the way. So it's not about that. It's the first step. We admitted we were powerless over our food supply, that our nourishment and well-being had become unmanageable. This is a collective conversation. Unfortunately, each of us grew up inside the structure where we are the pawn of the system, and we've again tolerated the policies that let this be real. So much like Robert pointed out, we are powerless over our food supply in huge segments of our nation. Our nourishment and well-being had become unmanageable. We do not have choice. came to believe that the power of a collective, a conscious collective voice could restore us to perfect health. Quite an undertaking, but I think everybody can get on board with that. Yeah. If there was such a power, if there was such a thing as integral Congress of food choices, made a decision to direct our intentions and actions to engaging only in conversations of ecosystem thriving as we understood them. Again, not me versus, but when I give over, right? Third step in 12-step programs, the third step is a surrender. It's a, okay, I think I'll let him, higher power, I think I'll let him, right? So we made a decision to direct our intentions to engage only in these conversations of ecosystem thriving. If it doesn't contribute to the holistic, it is poisoning to me. Made a searching and fearless nourishment inventory of our food, drink, air, water, environments, conversations with self and other, and emotional terrain and political influences. So we look around, we call a spade, let's see how we got into this mess. Admitted to the ecosystem, to ourselves, and to other human beings impacted and impacting our environments, the exact nature of our toxicities. And we're entirely ready to hold accountable all those responsible for our food chains, to remove all these defects and decrements of organic life and foodstuff, and to step into that personal and collective agency for ongoingly monitoring. That's the okay, here we go step, right? And then humbly and resolvedly ask them to remove those poisons of foodstuff, nourishment, system, and ideology. Made a list of all persons and institutions we had harmed by participating in these destructive habits of toxic consumption and neglect of self and other, toxic neglect of self and other, and became willing to make amends to them all. And then action. Made direct amends to such people and institution wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were toxic, poisoned, unhealthy, malnourished, neglected in any way, promptly admitted it. Right, Sandra, that's your wow, what did I do? Why would I do that? Right, in the moment, it's not the next morning. Right, sought through mindful personal practice, claiming full responsibility for our sacred nourishment to improve our organic contact with Mother Nature as we understood her, praying only for knowledge of and access to and consumption of her natural empowering elements for us, and intending collectively for the power to carry that out. And then, having had a well-being awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to food supply victims, which is all of us, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So that's the pay it forwardness, right? After we have had a bit of a wake-up call, and I think everybody on this platform has had a bit of a wake-up call, then we get to carry the message, and then we have a shot at food sovereignty. If anybody wants those 12 steps, they're not in any way perfected, and certainly not sanctioned by any by Alcoholics Anonymous or any other anonymous organization, not sanctioned by anybody other than me. But if you'd like to help me craft them, I think that might be a nice pointer. So we're coming up to the top of the hour here, and I want to thank everybody for helping me be surprised by what I said instead of what I thought I was going to say. If anybody's got anything else they want to toss in, please feel free. Jay, thank you. Got it. Yes, please, to the 12 steps.
I think there should be a 12-step food program like that, particularly now that we've come to a time in the world where we're all awakening. We're all awakening to the question that you asked, what's real, what's not real. I think we need your 12-step program.
Mm. Well, thank you for being my first ambassador, then. You're nominated. Appreciate everybody being here today. If you are here accidentally, you don't know what the context is. This World Unity Week is a global navigation, which is the beginning of what they call 99 Days of Peace through Unity, what we call 99 Days of Peace through Unity, culminating in the United Nations International Day of Peace in September. So this is the beginning week, and you also have a chance, if you'd like, if you want to participate. We're coming up towards the end of the week. I don't think we'll probably have any other actual presentations, but one great way to participate, certainly you can register, you don't have to. If you want to present, go for it, and you can even steward a room. But this declare a mission form is a wonderful personal exploration. If this has awakened anything today in you that you'd like to go see some change, transformation in the next 99 days, just declare it. Yeah, nothing happens until it's first spoken. But so you can go to the schedule, and if you click on, well, I'll tell you what, if you click on all rooms, you can see the different convergence rooms. And I think there are about 25 now. New Earth Systems, Peace, Indigenous Wisdom, different healings. This is us, Humanity as Organism Thrives, where we're together, connected, we're well. Energy workers, sacred geometry, musicians, politicians, philosophers, may peace prevail on earth. Some very practical and some esoteric, and all along the spectrum. Yeah, but we are as a species emerging. We are as a new human being emerging, and one of the personal enlightenments that I've had over the past couple of years has been into the we. So that's why we decided to call this Humanity as Organism Thrives. And that's, but there's nuts and bolts, as human being is also evolving the mechanics by which we live our lives, and the structures of the cities, and the structures of our interactions, the structures of the way we mobilize ourselves and travel. Those will change dramatically in the coming years. So you can see, you can play around there. And here at the top of the hour, in just a couple of minutes, is our next plenary session. So if anybody's interested in hanging out for the love of life, finding our way to an ecological civilization, this is the world premiere of a new film in which David Corten discusses the arc of his life's work. Ecological civilization based on life-affirming cooperation instead of profit-seeking competition. And then a conversation with David and Audrey Kitagawa. So thank you for hanging out with the love of life today. It's been an honor. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Treat yourself sacredly and pay it forward. Get very vocal. One of the things that came from yesterday for me, somebody used the phrase, don't hoard. And it was, in the world of so many enlightened beings, we're all waking up, and we're all waking up so beautifully. And it can be overwhelming sometimes. Sometimes you would just want to go into the corner. But sharing our breakthroughs is such a planting of the flag of our evolution, our own personal evolution. So I honor you. I'm already grateful for whoever you share with today. your breakthroughs, whatever it is, little, big. No breakthrough, no forwarding is too small. Okay, let's close out. Y'all be well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for being here.
Stop recording.